It was a typical afternoon in bustling city, kind of day where steady hum of city life filled air. Commuters hurriedly made their way to buses, heads buried in their phones or lost in thought, eager to get home after a long day. But what happened on one of these ordinary bus rides would soon spark a story that touched the hearts of millions. The bus was packed, standing room only, as it often is during rush hour. Among passengers was a young black teen, Marcus, who had just finished school and was heading home, tired but always mindful of those around him. He wasn't typed to attract attention. Dressed in his usual hoodie and jeans, with headphones snug in his ears, he could have easily blended into the sea of faces. But something caught Marcus's eye. An elderly woman, hunched and clearly struggling to stay upright, clung to the pole in the center of the bus. Her hands, frail and shaking, gripped it tightly as the bus lurched forward. She looked exhausted, and there was no empty seat in sight. Without a second thought, Marcus pulled his headphones off, stood up, and waved to her. "Ma'am, you can take my seat," he said with a kind smile. His voice, though soft, cut through the noise of the bus. The elderly woman, her tired eyes full of surprise, glanced at Marcus. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. People around them exchanged looks, some nodding in approval, others simply ignoring the interaction. It was a small act, seemingly insignificant to those wrapped up in their own worlds. But for Marcus, it was natural. His mother had always taught him to respect his elders, and this gesture was just an extension of the values ingrained in him from a young age. She thanked him, her voice trembling slightly as she took the seat, grateful for the brief reprieve from standing. The rest of the bus ride seemed uneventful, or so Marcus thought. He put his headphones back in and leaned against the handrail, watching the streets blur past the windows as the city moved on. But just as the bus reached her stop, the elderly woman stood, slowly and carefully. She reached into her worn-out purse and pulled out something small, a folded piece of paper. With a mysterious look in her eyes, she handed it to Marcus. "This is for you," she said softly, pressing the note into his hand before shuffling off the bus. Marcus was taken aback. His mind raced with questions. What could possibly be written in the note? Why did she give it to him? The bus doors closed behind her, leaving Marcus standing there, gripping the note tightly in his hand. He felt an odd sense of tension, as if something far greater than a simple thank you had been exchanged between them. His heart beat a little faster as he glanced down at the small piece of paper. It was old, a little crumpled, but there was something about it that felt weighty, as if it carried a secret he was not prepared to uncover. Should he open it right away? As the bus continued its route, Marcus stared out the window, the note burning a hole in his pocket. What could this elderly woman, a complete stranger, possibly have to say to him? And why did it feel like this small act of kindness had just set something in motion, something much bigger than either of them could have anticipated? The story was just beginning. Stay tuned to find out what's written in the note and how this simple gesture turned into something extraordinary, changing Marcus's life forever. What seemed like a random encounter was about to unravel in ways neither Marcus nor the world could have imagined. Marcus stared at the crumpled note in his hand as the bus rolled through the city streets. He couldn't stop thinking about the elderly woman, her weathered face, her frail hands, and the mysterious note she'd handed him. What could it possibly say? And why give it to him, a random stranger on a bus? He slid the note into his pocket, deciding to wait until he got home to open it. There was something about the moment that felt too significant, like it demanded more attention than a quick glance. While standing on a crowded bus, the weight of the unknown lingered in his mind, fueling a growing curiosity. Marcus glanced around the bus. Most passengers were still lost in their own lives, unaware of the small but pivotal moment that had just unfolded. He noticed a few people had seen the interaction, their expressions ranging from indifferent to slightly curious, but no one seemed as invested in the note as he was. How could they be? It wasn't their life, their mystery to unravel. The city blurred by, the streets lined with familiar sights, corner stores, busy intersections, children playing in the distance. Marcus had lived in this part of town his whole life, and yet today, something felt different. The air seemed thicker, heavier, as if the world around him was charged with new energy. He couldn't shake the feeling that something profound had just happened, even if he didn't yet understand what. Marcus was a typical teenager in many ways. He went to school, hung out with friends, and loved music. But life hadn't always been easy for him. Growing up in the city's tougher neighborhoods, he had seen his fair share of struggles. His mother, a hard-working nurse, raised him on her own. She instilled in him values of kindness, respect, and responsibility. They didn't have much, but what they did have was built on love and the belief that good things come to those who do right by others. From a young age, Marcus learned to help out around the house, take care of his little sister, and navigate the challenges that came with living in a community often overlooked by the world. He had witnessed the hardships faced by those around him: poverty, crime, and inequality. But his mother had always taught him to rise above it, to be the change he wanted to see. His neighborhood was a mix of cultures, stories, and lives, all woven together by the shared experience of making do with what little they had. The city itself was diverse, vibrant, and chaotic. It was a place where everyone had their own hustle, their own story, and yet, where moments of connection, like the one with the elderly woman, seemed rare. People were too busy, too focused on surviving, to stop and acknowledge one another. But Marcus's upbringing had always made him different. He saw people really saw them, and today, it seemed someone had noticed that in him. As the bus slowed to a stop near his apartment complex, Marcus stepped off, feeling the cool evening air hit his face. The streets were alive with the usual noise: cars honking, distant music blaring, people chatting on sidewalks. But as he walked toward his building, his mind was still locked on the note. At home, Marcus entered the small, cozy apartment he shared with his mom and little sister, Elisha. The familiar smell of dinner cooking filled the air, and his mother's voice floated from the kitchen as she called out to him. "How was school?" she asked, not looking up from the stove. "Good," Marcus replied absent-mindedly, still preoccupied. Alicia, who was sitting on the living room floor with her homework spread out in front of her, glanced up. "You okay, Marcus?" she asked, noticing his distracted expression. "Yeah, I'm good," he said, forcing a smile. "Just thinking about something." He made his way to his room, closing the door behind him. The small space was filled with posters of his favorite musicians, a desk cluttered with books, and a bed that took up most of the floor. Marcus sat down on the edge of the bed and pulled the note from his pocket, staring at it for what felt like an eternity. Finally, with a deep breath, he unfolded the worn piece of paper. The handwriting was shaky, the kind of script that comes with age and a lifetime of experiences. The words, though simple, sent a shiver down his spine. "You are part of something bigger than you know. Trust your instincts. Follow the signs." That was it. No name, no further explanation, just those cryptic words. Marcus read the note over and over, trying to make sense of it. Part of something bigger? What did that even mean? And what signs was he supposed to follow? For a moment, he considered that it might be a joke, something meaningless. But deep down, he knew there was more to it. The elderly woman's eyes had held a certain intensity, as if she knew something he didn't, as if she had passed on a message that was crucial, even if Marcus couldn't yet understand its importance. He lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. What signs was he supposed to look for? And why him? Was this just a coincidence, or had he somehow been chosen for something? The next day at school, Marcus found it hard to focus. His mind kept wandering back to the note. He replayed the moment with the elderly woman over and over in his head. There was a part of him that wanted to believe the note was just a strange one-time event. After all, how could a random act of kindness on a bus lead to something bigger? But another part of him felt a strange pull, like the words on that note were more than just a message. They were a sign themselves. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was waiting for him, something he had to discover. During lunch, Marcus sat with his friends, but his usual easygoing attitude was missing. His best friend, Malik, noticed. "Yo man, what's up with you?" "You've been quiet all day," Malik said, eyeing Marcus with concern. Marcus hesitated. Should he tell someone about the note? Would they think he was crazy? But Malik had been his closest friend since they were kids. If anyone would understand, it was him. "I don't know, man," Marcus started. "Something weird happened yesterday on the bus." This old lady gave me a note, and it's been messing with my head ever since. A note? Malik raised an eyebrow. Like, a love note from an old lady? He joked, trying to lighten the mood. Nah, nothing like that. It was more like, I don't know, like a warning or a clue or something. She said, I'm part of something bigger than I know, and that I should trust my instincts and follow the signs. Marcus pulled the note from his pocket, unfolding it and showing it to Malik. Malik stared at the note for a moment before handing it back. That's some deep stuff, man. You think she was serious? I don't know, but I can't stop thinking about it. What if there's something I'm supposed to do? Malik shrugged. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe you should follow the signs like she said. You never know, right? Marcus nodded, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. The note had opened a door to something he didn't understand yet, and now there was no closing it. Later that evening, Marcus decided to take a walk. He often did this when he needed to clear his head, the rhythm of his footsteps helping him think. He walked the same familiar route through the neighborhood, past the corner store, the basketball courts, and the park where kids were playing. But tonight, everything felt different. It was as if the city itself had shifted, and he was seeing it with new eyes. As Marcus turned down a quieter street, he noticed something odd. There, on the side of a building, was a small, faded symbol he had never seen before, a strange marking that looked almost like an ancient rune. It was faint, but it seemed to glow faintly in the dim streetlight. Was this a sign? He approached the wall, his heart pounding in his chest. Something about the symbol felt familiar, though he was certain he had never seen it before. He reached out, his fingers tracing the lines of the symbol, feeling the cool brick beneath his fingertips. Suddenly, a voice behind him interrupted the moment. You're starting to see them, aren't you? Marcus whipped around, his heart skipping a beat. There, standing in the shadows, was a figure he had never seen before. The man was tall, dressed in dark clothes, and his eyes glimmered with a knowing look. Who are you? Marcus asked, his voice trembling slightly. The man stepped forward, the dim light revealing more of his face. Let's just say, I've been waiting for you. Marcus took a step back, his mind racing. What did this stranger mean? How could he have been waiting for him? The cryptic note, the strange symbol, and now this. It was all starting to feel like something far bigger than Marcus could have imagined. The man smiled slightly, but there was no warmth in it. Welcome to the real world, Marcus. This next chapter leaves us with more questions than answers. What does the stranger know? What is the meaning of the symbol Marcus discovered? And how does all of this connect to the mysterious note the elderly woman gave him? Stay tuned as the story unfolds and the mystery deepens. Marcus's journey is only just beginning, and the truth may be more than he bargained for. The man's words echoed in Marcus's mind, sending a chill down his spine. Welcome to the real world, Marcus. What did that even mean? His eyes searched the stranger's face, but there was no clue, no flicker of explanation in his unreadable expression. The quiet street around them felt suddenly claustrophobic, as if the entire world had shifted beneath Marcus's feet, and he was standing on the edge of something he couldn't quite see. What are you talking about? Marcus asked, trying to steady his voice, but his heart was hammering in his chest. He still had the note in his pocket, the cryptic message burning in his mind. The man, tall and imposing in the shadows, took another step forward. I know you have questions, and I know you're confused, but I promise, all of this will start making sense soon. There was a calmness in his voice, a kind of quiet confidence that unnerved Marcus even more. Who was this guy? And how did he know about the note? Marcus glanced around, the city still alive behind him. But here in this small, isolated corner, it felt like time had stopped. The symbol on the wall, the strange man appearing from the shadows, none of it made sense. But Marcus felt like the note and everything that had happened since wasn't random. There was something happening here. Who are you? Marcus demanded, taking a cautious step backward. He needed answers, but every instinct told him not to trust this stranger. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into the pocket of his coat, pulling out a small, sleek device. It looked almost like a phone, but different, more advanced. He held it up, tapping the screen, and immediately the faint glow of the symbol on the wall behind Marcus intensified, pulsing with an eerie light. Marcus spun around, his eyes widening. What? What is that? His voice faltered. The symbol, which had seemed faint and unimportant a moment ago, was now glowing brightly, casting strange shadows on the ground. The man's voice was calm, but carried an edge of warning. This is just the beginning, Marcus. You've stumbled into something far bigger than you realize. He stepped closer, and Marcus instinctively backed away, feeling the brick wall at his back. There was nowhere to go. I don't understand, Marcus said, his voice low but urgent. What does this have to do with me? The man's eyes softened slightly, as if he was finally ready to explain at least part of the truth. You weren't chosen by accident, Marcus. The woman on the bus, she wasn't just an old lady. She's part of something, a group, an ancient network that's been watching, waiting. Marcus shook his head. Waiting for what? The man's gaze didn't waver. Waiting for you. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Waiting for me? Marcus's voice cracked with disbelief. This had to be a mistake. He was just a regular kid, a teenager trying to make it through school and help his mom with rent. There was no way he could be involved in anything that sounded as intense as this. None of it made sense. Why me? Marcus finally asked. Why am I so important? The man hesitated, as if considering how much to tell him. It's not just you. It's what you represent. The choices you make, your actions, they ripple out, affecting more than just the people you interact with directly. You've already started a chain of events in motion. Marcus felt a wave of frustration building. You're not answering my question. What am I supposed to do? What does this note have to do with any of it? The man's expression turned serious, all traces of his earlier calm fading. The note is just the first piece of a much larger puzzle. And right now, there are people who know you have it, people who will stop at nothing to get it from you. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. People? What people? His mind raced as he tried to piece it together, but there was still too much he didn't understand. Why? Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Because the note holds a secret that's been hidden for a long time. And if the wrong people find it, everything will change. The balance of power, the way the world works, all of it will be upended. The stakes couldn't have been higher. Marcus's world tilted on its axis as the man's words sunk in. He was in way over his head, and suddenly the weight of the note in his pocket felt heavier than ever before. He hadn't signed up for this. He didn't want to be part of some mysterious conflict he barely understood. I didn't ask for this, Marcus said, his voice tight. I didn't ask to be involved. The man nodded, his expression surprisingly empathetic. I know, and I'm sorry, but you don't have a choice anymore. The moment you took that note, you became part of something much bigger than yourself. Marcus swallowed hard, feeling the tension coil inside him. The mystery had deepened, and the stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined. As the man finished speaking, Marcus noticed something out of the corner of his eye movement at the end of the street. A dark figure emerged from the shadows, walking slowly but purposefully toward them. His heart began to race again. Was this one of the people the man had warned him about? The stranger's calm demeanor shifted instantly. We need to go. Now? Before Marcus could protest, the man grabbed his arm and pulled him into a narrow alleyway, away from the street and out of sight of the approaching figure. They moved quickly, dodging between dumpsters and old crates, until they reached a hidden back exit of a nearby building. Inside, the dimly lit space was filled with strange machinery and old books stacked haphazardly on shelves. It felt like a hidden lair, a place no one was meant to find. Marcus could feel the weight of history in the air, as if the room had been used for centuries by people who were always one step ahead of the world. The man shut the door behind them, locking it with a strange device that emitted a soft beep. Marcus was too out of breath to ask questions, his mind racing as he tried to process everything that had happened in the last few minutes. The man turned to him, his expression grave. They're here sooner than I expected. I didn't think they'd move this fast, but they must have sensed you took the note. He pulled a chair toward Marcus, urging him to sit. Marcus collapsed into the chair, still trying to catch his breath. Who are they? What do they want with me? They're part of an organization, the kind that operates in the shadows. The man sat across from Marcus, his tone serious. They've been after the secret for years, ever since they learned about the note. And now that it's in your hands, they'll stop at nothing to get it back. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. The note. He pulled it from his pocket and stared at it, the weight of its importance sinking in even further. He had no idea that such a small piece of paper could hold so much power, or that it could put him in so much danger. What's so important about this note? Marcus asked, his voice tinged with frustration and fear. The man sighed, leaning forward with a serious expression. It's a map. Not a map in the traditional sense, but a map that leads to something powerful, something that could change everything. Marcus's brow furrowed. A map? He glanced down at the note again, the cryptic message still glaring back at him. But it just says something about trusting my instincts and following the signs. That's the key, the man explained. The note is more than just words. It's a guide, a code. It will only reveal itself to the right person at the right time. And that person is you, Marcus. Before Marcus could respond, the door behind them shook violently, as if someone was trying to break in. The man leaped to his feet, his expression darkening. They've found us. Marcus's heart raced. Whoever was out there, they weren't here for a friendly chat. The man moved quickly, grabbing an old weathered book from the shelf and flipping it open. He tore a page out and handed it to Marcus. Take this. It's part of the key. You'll need it later. Marcus stared at the page, the symbols on it unfamiliar and strange. What is this? No time to explain, the man said, his tone urgent. You need to leave. Now? But what about you? Marcus asked, his mind spinning with questions. I'll hold them off, the man said, glancing toward the door. But you need to get to safety. There's a place, a safe house. Follow the instructions on the note, and it will lead you there. Marcus hesitated, torn between staying and leaving. But before he could make a decision, the door burst open, and a group of dark-clad figures stormed in. The man pushed Marcus toward a hidden exit at the back of the room. Go! The man shouted. And with that, Marcus ran, the weight of the note and the torn page in his pocket, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know where he was going or what awaited him, but he knew one thing for sure. His life had changed forever. The tension builds, the mystery deepens, and Marcus finds himself on the run, caught in a dangerous game that he doesn't fully understand. But this is only the beginning. The next step in his journey will reveal more about the shadowy organization pursuing him, the true nature of the note, and the unimaginable power that lies at the heart of the conspiracy. Stay tuned as we uncover the truth, piece by piece. The next twist in Marcus's journey is just around the corner. Marcus sprinted through the narrow passageway, the adrenaline in his veins giving him speed he didn't know he had. The alleyway behind him echoed with the sound of footsteps. The figures who had stormed in moments before were on his trail. Who were these people? And more importantly, why were they willing to go to such lengths to retrieve a note from an unsuspecting teenager? The torn page the man had given him rustled in his pocket as he ran. He didn't know what it meant, but it was clear now that it wasn't just any note. There was something about it, something powerful and dangerous enough for these people to chase him down. But how had his life spiraled into this nightmare? He barely had time to think. The walls of the alley were closing in, shadows looming over him as he dodged trash bins and other debris scattered in his path. His breath came in short, sharp gasps as the sound of footsteps grew louder. Marcus pushed harder, willing his legs to move faster. Suddenly, he spotted a dimly lit side street branching off to the left. Without hesitation, he darted into it, hoping to lose his pursuers. The moment he turned the corner, the city seemed to come alive again. Neon signs flickered, cars honked in the distance, and pedestrians ambled by, as if oblivious to the chase unfolding just a few blocks away. Marcus slowed down, trying to blend in, pulling up the hood of his jacket to avoid drawing attention. His heart was still pounding in his chest, his mind racing as he slipped into the crowd. He risked a glance behind him. The alley was empty for now. He couldn't keep running forever. He needed a plan. Marcus ducked into a nearby convenience store, the fluorescent lights humming softly as he entered. He walked toward the back, pretending to browse the shelves, but his mind was on high alert. What had the man said? There was a safe house. The note would lead him there, but how? He pulled the note out of his pocket again, the cryptic message staring back at him. Trust your instincts. Follow the signs. It was vague, frustratingly so, but he had to trust that there was more to it than met the eye. As he stared at the words, something strange began to happen. The ink on the note seemed to shimmer, shifting and rearranging itself before his very eyes. Marcus blinked, unsure if his mind was playing tricks on him, but the letters morphed into something new in address. There it was, clear as day. Marcus quickly memorized the address before the letters returned to their original form. It was some sort of code, he realized. The note was guiding him, just as the man had said. But where was this address leading him? He shoved the note back into his pocket and left the store, pulling out his phone to check the address. It wasn't far, just a few miles away. But the idea of walking there, knowing he was being hunted, made his stomach churn with anxiety. Still, he didn't have a choice. Marcus kept his head low as he made his way through the city, weaving in and out of crowds, checking over his shoulder every few minutes. The tension in his muscles never eased, and he could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He was caught in the middle of something dangerous, something bigger than he could have ever imagined. As he neared the address, the neighborhood grew quieter, the city's bustling energy fading into the background. The building ahead of him was old and unassuming, tucked away in a forgotten corner of the city. It didn't look like much. If anything, it was the kind of place you'd walk past without giving it a second glance. But this was it. This was where the note had led him. Marcus hesitated at the door, glancing around one last time to make sure he hadn't been followed. The street was empty, quiet except for the occasional passing car. He took a deep breath and knocked. The door creaked open almost immediately, revealing an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression. "You're Marcus, aren't you?" she asked, her voice low but firm. Marcus's mouth went dry. "Yeah, I am." She stepped aside, motioning for him to enter. "We've been expecting you." The inside of the building was a stark contrast to its drab exterior. The moment Marcus stepped through the door, he was hit by the overwhelming sense that this place had a purpose, and that it had been prepared long before he arrived. The walls were lined with shelves of old books, files, and strange-looking devices. Maps and charts were pinned up, some of them covered in the same symbols he had seen in the alleyway earlier. Whoever these people were, they had been studying something important. The woman led him deeper into the building, down a narrow hallway until they reached a small room. Inside, there were several other people, some older, some younger, all of them looking serious and focused. "This is Marcus," the woman announced. The others turned to look at him, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Marcus shifted uncomfortably under their gaze. "Who are you people?" The woman who had let him in crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "We're part of a network, Marcus. A group that's been protecting secrets for centuries. The note you have is just one piece of a larger puzzle. A puzzle that could change the world if it falls into the wrong hands." Marcus's head spun as he tried to take it all in. "So why me? Why did I get the note?" An older man, sitting at a desk covered in papers, spoke up. "Because you were chosen." His voice was calm but firm. "The note has been passed down through generations, waiting for the right person to come along. And now, it's your turn." Marcus frowned. "But I don't understand. I'm just a regular kid. What makes me so special?" The woman who had let him in softened her expression slightly. "It's not about being special, Marcus. It's about what you represent, a new era, a new beginning. The world is changing, and the power that comes with the note could either save us or destroy us. And you're the one who has to decide which path we take." Marcus felt a heavy weight settle on his shoulders. How was he supposed to make that kind of decision? Before Marcus could ask any more questions, the door behind them suddenly burst open, and a young man rushed in, out of breath and panicked. "They're coming," he gasped, clutching his side. "They've found us." The room exploded into action. Papers were quickly gathered, and the older man began issuing orders. "We need to move. Now?" Marcus's heart raced as the gravity of the situation hit him once again. Who were these people coming after them? And why were they so desperate to get their hands on the note? The woman who had let him in turned to him, her expression serious. "You need to go with him," she said, pointing to the young man who had just burst in. "He'll take you to the next safe location." "But what about all of you?" Marcus asked, feeling a wave of guilt wash over him. "You're in danger because of me." The older man shook his head. "We've been in danger for a long time, Marcus. You're not the cause of this. You're just part of the solution. Now go. There's no time." The young man grabbed Marcus's arm and pulled him toward the back exit. The sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. The attackers were closing in. As they fled into the night, Marcus couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He hadn't asked for any of this, but now he was caught in the middle of a dangerous game, one with consequences far beyond anything he had ever imagined. The safe house disappeared into the distance, and the city's lights blurred as they ran. Marcus didn't know where they were going, or what would happen next, but one thing was clear: this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. As Marcus and the young man, whose name he learned was Devon, ran through the maze-like streets, the tension in the air thickened. The attackers were relentless, always seeming to be just a step behind them. Devon led Marcus through back alleys and side streets, navigating the city with the precision of someone who had done this many times before. "Who are these people chasing us?" Marcus asked breathlessly as they ducked behind a dumpster to catch their breath. Devon wiped the sweat from his brow, his expression grim. "They're part of a powerful organization that's been trying to get their hands on the note for years. They believe that with it, they can unlock an ancient power, one that would give them control over, well, everything." Marcus's stomach twisted at the thought. Control over everything? It sounded like something out of a movie, but the fear in Devon's eyes told him it was all too real. "So what happens if they get it?" Marcus asked, already dreading the answer. Devon shook his head. "If they get the note, everything changes. They'll use the power for their own gain, and the world as we know it, it won't survive." Marcus stared at him, his heart pounding in his chest. How had he gotten involved in something so dangerous, so monumental? All he had done was offer his seat to an elderly woman on the bus, and now he was running for his life, caught in the middle of a battle that could determine the fate of the world. And so the chase continued, the stakes higher than ever. Marcus knew that this was just the beginning. The conflict was only going to escalate from here. But as the mystery of the note deepened and the dangers multiplied, he realized that there was no turning back. The only question now was, would he be able to survive long enough to uncover the truth? Or would the forces chasing him finally catch up and claim the power they so desperately sought? As Marcus and Devon sprinted through the city's maze-like alleys, the gravity of the situation pressed on them like a vice. Every breath was labored, and the weight of the mystery surrounding the note felt heavier with each passing second. But just when it seemed like they had escaped their pursuers, a dark SUV screeched to a halt at the mouth of the alley. The headlights momentarily blinded them as several figures dressed in tactical gear emerged. Marcus's heart leaped into his throat. "Run!" Devon shouted, shoving Marcus toward a narrow side passage. But before they could move, a voice boomed from behind the headlights. "Stop right there." Marcus froze. That voice. It was authoritative, commanding, but oddly familiar. He turned slowly, trying to make out the figure behind the light. The man stepped forward, his face finally visible in the dim light cast by the nearby street lamp. Marcus's eyes widened in shock. It was Officer Daniels, the very cop who had helped him just a few days ago when he had first received the note. "Officer?" Marcus stammered, confusion flooding his mind. "What's going on?" Daniel's face remained emotionless, but there was something in his eyes, a coldness, a calculation that Marcus hadn't seen before. "You need to come with me, Marcus," Daniel said, his voice low but insistent. Devon grabbed Marcus's arm, whispering urgently, "We can't trust him. He's not who you think he is." Marcus's mind raced. Daniels had been so kind before, helpful even. But now there was an edge to his demeanor that set off alarm bells. His gut told him something was wrong, but how could he reconcile this feeling with the man who had once seemed like a protector? "Why?" Marcus demanded, taking a step back. "Why are you doing this?" Daniels didn't answer immediately. He motioned for his men to fan out, boxing Marcus and Devon into the alley. The tactical team moved with precision, clearly well trained and prepared for a confrontation. "You're in way over your head, Marcus," Daniels said finally, his tone softer, almost regretful. "You have no idea what you're holding on to. That note, it's more dangerous than you can imagine." A second betrayal. Marcus's blood ran cold. This was it. The second betrayal, the second plot twist that turned his world upside down. Devon's grip on Marcus's arm tightened, and he leaned in closer, his voice barely a whisper. "He's working for them, for the organization that's after the note. They've infiltrated every level, police, government, everything." Marcus felt a wave of nausea wash over him. Daniels was one of them? The officer who had seemed so concerned about his well-being was actually part of the same shadowy group that had been chasing him all along. He took another step back, his eyes darting between Daniels and the tactical team. They had to get out of there. "Marcus," Daniels continued, his voice low and dangerous, "this isn't a game. You hand over the note and we'll let you walk away. But if you don't..." He didn't finish the sentence, but the threat hung heavily in the air. Devon's hand shot toward his waist, and Marcus realized with horror that he was reaching for a weapon, a small pistol concealed under his jacket. Marcus's heart raced even faster. "No, wait," Marcus shouted, stepping in front of Devon before things could escalate. Just wait a minute." Daniels raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by Marcus's reaction. "Smart kid. Now, hand it over." Marcus's mind raced. What was he supposed to do? He didn't trust Daniels, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. He couldn't just hand over the note, could he? What would happen if he did? Then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. From the shadows of the alley, a figure appeared. Tall, cloaked in black, and moving with the grace of a predator, the newcomer slipped between Marcus and the tactical team like a phantom. Before anyone could react, the figure disarmed one of the officers with lightning speed and kicked another to the ground. Chaos erupted. Daniels shouted for his men to retaliate, but the figure was too fast. Marcus and Devon stood frozen, watching as the mystery figure incapacitated the entire team with a series of fluid, well-placed strikes. It was like something out of a movie. In less than a minute, it was over. The tactical team lay groaning on the ground, and the dark-clad figure turned to face Marcus and Devon. "Time to go," the figure said, their voice distorted by some sort of modulator. Without another word, the figure grabbed Marcus's arm and pulled him toward the back of the alley. Devon followed, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and confusion. Who was this person? As they ran through the darkened streets, Marcus's mind spun with questions. Why had they saved him? Were they part of the same group as Devon, or was this another player in the dangerous game surrounding the note? They ran for what felt like hours, winding through the city, until they reached an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The figure finally stopped, allowing them a moment to catch their breath. Marcus doubled over, gasping for air, while Devon leaned against the wall, still clutching his side. The figure removed their hood, revealing the face of a woman probably in her late 30s, with sharp features and piercing green eyes. Her hair was tied back in a tight braid, and there was a fierceness to her that made it clear she was not to be messed with. "You're safe for now," she said, her voice still calm despite everything that had just happened. Marcus straightened, still trying to process everything. Who are you?" The woman's eyes flicked toward Devon, then back to Marcus. "You can call me Rain," she said. "I'm part of a different organization, one that's been trying to stop people like Daniels from getting their hands on the note for years." Marcus blinked, feeling like he had just been thrown into an even deeper conspiracy. "Wait, so you're not with Devon's group?" Rain's expression darkened slightly. "Devon's group means well, but they don't have the resources or the experience to deal with what's coming. That's why I've been sent to intervene." Marcus's head spun. There was another group involved? He hadn't even fully wrapped his mind around Devon's organization. And now there was another one? And what exactly was coming? "Why should we trust you?" Devon asked, his tone wary. "We don't even know who you are." Rainey met his gaze evenly. "You don't have to trust me, but if you want to stay alive, you'll need my help. The people coming after that note will stop at nothing to get it. And Daniels is just the beginning." Marcus swallowed hard. How much deeper did this go? First, it was a simple note, then a mysterious conspiracy, and now another shadowy organization. The stakes were rising faster than he could comprehend. "What's so special about this note?" Marcus asked, pulling the crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. "I don't understand why everyone is after it." Rain's eyes narrowed as she studied the note, her expression unreadable. "That's because you don't know the full story. This note isn't just a piece of paper. It's a key to something far more valuable." Marcus's heart skipped a beat. "A key? To what?" Rainey glanced around the warehouse, as if checking for any potential eavesdroppers, before leaning in closer.